The sun rose slowly over the quiet farm, painting the fields with golden light. The large black man stood at the edge of his land, stretching his arms as he looked over the rows of crops. His farm was not huge, but it was enough. Enough to live simply, enough to stay away from the chaos of the city, enough to find peace in the rhythm of planting and harvesting. He was a man of gentle habits, always smiling at neighbors when they passed by, always willing to lend a hand when someone needed it. He started his day with the usual chores. First, he checked on the chickens. They clucked and flapped around him. Familiar with his voice and the soft touch of his hands, he scattered feed and watched as they pecked eagerly at the ground. Even this simple task brought him a sense of calm. There was no rush here, no loud noises, no demands that could not wait. Just him and the land and the animals that depended on him. After the chickens, he moved to the vegetable garden. The soil was rich and dark, a result of years of careful tending. He knelt down, running his hands over the earth, checking the roots and the leaves. Carrots, tomatoes, peppers, and leafy greens thrived under his care. He smiled at a row of young plants, remembering the effort it took to plant them months ago. Every sprout felt like a small victory, a reminder that patience and attention could make something grow, even when the world outside seemed hurried and harsh. While working, he hummed quietly to himself. He liked songs from long ago, tunes that reminded him of calm evenings and small joys. Sometimes the neighbors would hear him and laugh, saying he had a voice like an old radio, but he didn't mind. The melodies were for him, a way to stay connected to life, to the simple pleasures that most people overlooked. Mid-morning came, and he took a break. Sitting on a wooden bench under the shade of a big oak tree, he drank water from a metal cup and looked out over the fields. The wind made the leaves whisper and the sun warmed his back. Everything seemed ordinary, peaceful. But he had a habit of observing quietly, noticing small details. A fence post leaning slightly, the soil near the corner of the barn looking dry, the tracks of animals in the dirt. It was not that he expected trouble, but life had taught him to see what others missed. A truck passed slowly on the dirt road beyond his property. The driver waved and he waved back, returning the smile without thought. The road was usually quiet, and the occasional traveler was more a curiosity than a concern. He liked it that way. Life here moved at its own pace, and he liked that pace. It allowed him to think, to remember, to be himself without anyone judging. He spent the afternoon tending to the cows. The animals mooed as he entered the pasture, recognizing the man who fed and cared for them. He guided them to the water trough and checked each one for signs of illness or injury. A gentle hand on a cow's back, a soft voice, a steady approach. These were the ways he connected with the creatures on his land. He understood their needs without words. This ability came naturally, or maybe it was something he had learned long ago in ways he rarely spoke about. As the sun moved lower in the sky, he finished his chores and began walking back toward the house. He carried a basket of freshly picked vegetables, the colors bright and vivid. He thought about dinner, about the stew he would make, about sitting down with a cup of tea and listening to the evening sounds of the farm. Everything was simple, routine, safe, yet there was a sense that something was shifting. He did not know what, not yet, but he noticed small things. Shadows moving in the wrong direction, the feeling of being watched, the faint sound of voices carried by the wind. Most people would have ignored it, would have laughed it off, but he had a habit of noticing. It was a habit formed over years of living carefully, of being aware even when life seemed calm. He shrugged it off for now, telling himself it was probably nothing. Most of the time it was nothing. Evening came and he lit a small fire in the kitchen. The smell of cooking vegetables filled the room, mixing with the scent of the wood stove and the earth outside. He worked slowly, cutting and stirring, enjoying the rhythm of preparing his own food. It was a quiet satisfaction, one that required no applause, no recognition. Just him and his meal, the comfort of being able to provide for himself. After dinner, he sat on the porch looking out at the horizon where the sun had disappeared. The sky was painted with shades of orange and purple. Crickets sang, and the cool night air carried the faint smell of soil and grass. He rocked gently in his chair, letting his mind wander. Memories of the past flickered briefly in his thoughts. Moments from years ago that seemed distant but never truly left him. He smiled faintly, a private smile, before returning his attention to the peaceful present. As night deepened, a sound broke the stillness. A faint crunch of tires on gravel, a whisper of voices, distant but deliberate. He froze, listening carefully. The instinct to act, to assess, to protect was immediate and sharp. Most people would have felt only fear, but he did not. His body reacted naturally, moving quietly toward the door, hand resting lightly on the frame, senses alert. It was a reflex he did not think about, a skill buried under years of ordinary life but never gone. Peering into the darkness, he saw a group of men at the edge of his property. They spoke in low tones, laughing quietly, confident they were unseen and unnoticed. They had eyes only for what they thought was an easy target. They did not know him. They did not know the life he had once lived, the training, the discipline, the strength that lay hidden beneath the calm exterior. To them, he was just a fat farmer, a quiet man with a friendly smile and a gentle heart. They were about to learn how wrong they were. He stayed silent, observing, learning their patterns, their mistakes. The wind was on his side, carrying his scent away from them. He moved slowly, deliberately, ready but not revealing his readiness. This was not the first time he had faced danger, though it was the first in many years that was so close to home. His heart beat steadily, his mind clear, as he prepared himself for what might come next. By the time the men finally left, laughing and unaware of the awareness they had been walking into, he allowed himself a quiet sigh. He returned inside, locked the doors, and sat by the window watching the darkness. The night was still alive with sounds of the farm, of animals and insects and the gentle rustle of leaves. Everything was as it should be, yet nothing was ever quite as simple as it seemed. He poured himself a cup of tea and sat in the chair by the fire. His hands were steady, his mind calm. He thought about the life he had chosen, the peaceful routine, the joy of simple work. And he thought quietly that he was ready for whatever might come, though he hoped it would not be soon. For now he was just a farmer, tending to his land, watching over his animals, enjoying the quiet that few people in the world ever truly found. And yet somewhere deep inside he knew that the calm would not last forever. Something was stirring beyond the fields, beyond the fences, and when it arrived he would be ready. Morning arrived slowly with light mist covering the fields. The large black farmer was already up, moving quietly among the crops. He carried a basket to check on the vegetables, his steps slow but deliberate. The chill of the morning air made him pull his jacket tighter, but he did not mind. It was part of the rhythm of farm life, the quiet, steady rhythm he had grown to love. As he worked, he noticed something different. A wheel track in the soft soil, not one he had made. The imprint was fresh. He knelt, studying it carefully, tracing the marks with his fingers. Someone had been here, not long ago. The thought made a small crease appear on his forehead, but he did not panic. He had learned long ago to observe before reacting. Every detail mattered. He continued his morning chores, feeding the chickens and checking the water for the cows, all the while keeping an eye on the edges of his property. His mind ran quietly through the possibilities. Could it be a lost traveler, a neighbor out too early, or something else? He did not know yet, but he trusted his instincts to guide him. By mid-morning, the sun had burned away the mist and the farm glowed with warm light. He took a moment to rest, sitting on a wooden bench near the barn. He drank water slowly, savoring the quiet. That was when he heard the first clear sign of trouble. A group of voices, low and rough, carried on the wind. They were speaking in a language meant to intimidate, to make him feel small. They laughed, their tone cruel, their confidence loud. He did not rise immediately. Instead, he observed from the bench, noting the rhythm of their words, the sound of their steps, the way they moved. They were strangers, and they were testing him, trying to see if he was weak or afraid. Most people would have felt panic, but he felt a cold, steady awareness. He had been trained for danger in ways most could not imagine, though now he was just a farmer. For now, the men moved closer to the fence, stopping to glance toward the barn and the house. One of them kicked at a loose plank, laughing at the sound it made. The farmer stayed still, silent, letting them believe the land was empty, that the man they expected was asleep or distracted. He could hear the faint shift of weight, the nervous glance of one of them toward another. They underestimated him. For the next few days, the men returned in subtle ways. A tool missing here, a note left under the mailbox, a small item out of place in the barn. Nothing violent yet, nothing overt, but the message was clear. They thought he was an easy target, a man who would not fight back. He watched it all carefully, learning their habits, noting when they came and went. The tension grew, but he did not let it control him. He moved through his day as he always had, tending the crops, caring for the animals, maintaining the rhythms of the farm. Neighbors began noticing changes too. One stopped by to ask if he had seen strange men on the road. Another mentioned rumors of a gang watching the farms in the area. Some suggested he call the police or hire protection, but he simply smiled and nodded, listening without judgment. He knew they meant well, but he had his own way of handling things. He had faced challenges far different from this in the past. He had survived situations that most people would never dream of. And now he was ready to protect what was his without alarming the town. He spent the afternoons preparing small traps around the property, simple things that would alert him to movement. A bell on the gate, a shift in the dirt near the barn, even the placement of a loose board so that a step would make a sound. He worked quietly, as if he were simply repairing and adjusting the farm. But every adjustment had purpose. Every detail mattered. One evening, as he returned from the fields, he caught sight of them again. 3 men, moving through the corner of his land, eyes scanning, confidence in their step. They did not notice him at first. He watched silently from behind the barn, his breathing steady, his mind calculating. He knew what they were thinking, assuming the land was empty, that the man was soft and slow. They did not know him at all. They tested him further, leaving a small package near the house, something meant to intimidate. He picked it up calmly, inspecting it. Nothing dangerous, not yet, but the gesture made the message clear. They wanted him afraid. They wanted him off balance. But he remained still, his calm deliberate. They would soon learn that fear did not guide him. Strategy did, patience did, and he had both in abundance. Night fell and the farm was quiet once more. He moved through the house, checking locks, listening to the wind, aware of the sounds of the animals in the yard. The voices of the men had faded, but he felt their presence like a shadow. He had faced enemies before, but never in this quiet, hidden way. They thought the calm was weakness, but he knew it was strength. He prepared for the next encounter, not with anger, but with focus and careful thought. As he sat by the fire that night, a cup of tea warming his hands, he thought about the life he had chosen. Peaceful, slow, simple. But he knew that simplicity could be fragile. People often assumed appearances were true, that a soft smile and gentle hands meant weakness. He knew better. Strength did not always announce itself. Sometimes it waited, quiet and steady, until it was needed. He thought about the men again, imagining their overconfidence, their expectation of an easy target. They did not understand him at all. They could not see the discipline behind his calm, the years of training that had prepared him for situations just like this. He allowed himself a faint smile, not of arrogance but of quiet assurance. He was ready. Days passed and the harassment continued in small ways. Tools moved, notes left, the occasional glance from the road. He responded with the same calm observation. Each act of theirs was recorded in his mind, each mistake noticed, each step watched. He became a shadow on his own land, present but unseen, aware but patient. The farm remained his sanctuary, but it was also becoming a place where the first lessons would be taught. Neighbors started whispering about the strange occurrences, but the farmer remained a figure of quiet stability. He helped a neighbor fix a fence, offered advice about planting, smiled at passers-by. All the while he prepared silently, a man balancing the ordinary and the extraordinary. One afternoon he noticed the gang moving closer, stepping onto his land with confidence. He watched from the barn loft unseen. The sun glinted on metal, the glint of knives and other tools, though nothing was brandished aggressively. Still, the intent was clear. They wanted to test him. He waited, counting their steps, noting the distance, their focus, the way they moved in unison. Patience, he reminded himself. Wait and watch. Evening came and the first direct confrontation loomed. He moved quietly, setting subtle alarms that would alert him to movement. Nothing heavy, nothing violent, just a way to maintain awareness and control. He understood the psychology of fear, of surprise, and he would use it. Not recklessly, not cruelly, but efficiently. As darkness fell, he stood at the edge of the porch looking out over the land. The farm was quiet, almost peaceful, though the tension was palpable. He could hear the faint footsteps approaching, the whisper of words meant to intimidate, the slight rustle of leaves. Every sense was alert, every muscle ready, but his expression remained calm, gentle. He was a farmer, after all, and yet he was more. The night stretched long, the men moving closer but not yet confronting. They were testing, probing, Unaware that the man they underestimated had the skill, the strength, and the mind to outmatch them, the farmer waited, observing, planning, ready to protect his land and his life. He did not rush, did not panic. He was patient as he had always been, letting the night teach him what he needed to know about those who thought him weak. And so the farm remained quiet, the mist returning with the cool air, the stars twinkling above, and the farmer standing watch. He was calm, alert, and prepared, though the world beyond his fences had begun to stir with trouble. He knew the days ahead would not be easy, but he also knew he was ready. In his quiet strength, in his calm patience, lay a power that few could imagine and even fewer could withstand. The night was calm, the farm bathed in silver moonlight. The large black farmer stood silently near the edge of his porch, eyes fixed on the shadows beyond the fence. The wind rustled the leaves softly, carrying faint sounds from the road where he had noticed the gang earlier. They were bold tonight, moving closer to his land with the confidence of those who think they are untouchable, but he did not fear them. His calm was steady, his focus sharp. Earlier in the day he had prepared for this moment. Simple traps, subtle alarms, and a careful observation of the terrain gave him the advantage. He knew the farm like the back of his hand. Every tree, every fence post, every patch of loose soil. The men thought they were testing him, seeing if he would react. They were about to learn that appearances could be deceiving. The first man stepped onto the property, his boots crunching softly on the gravel. The farmer watched, noting the way the man held himself, the rhythm of his movement, the confidence in his step. Another followed, and then a third. They moved slowly, joking quietly, unaware that the farm was not empty, that the man they underestimated had been watching, waiting, and preparing. Suddenly, a small bell he had hung on the gate tinkled. One of the men paused, looking around, trying to locate the source. The farmer remained still, his large frame hidden behind the shadows of the barn. He knew their focus was divided now, their attention split between each other and the unexpected sound. This was his moment. He moved silently, stepping out from behind the barn, his presence revealed only at the perfect moment. The men froze, their laughter dying in their throats. One glanced at the other, confusion in his eyes. The farmer's calm expression and imposing size were the first things they noticed. But there was something more, a controlled, deliberate energy that spoke of experience, of discipline, of someone who had faced danger and survived. "Evening," the farmer said softly, his voice steady, almost casual. It was the kind of voice that did not need to raise itself to command attention. Yet every word carried authority. The men shifted uneasily, sensing that the situation was not as simple as they had assumed. The first man took a step forward, trying to mask his fear with bravado. "We were just passing through," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. The farmer's eyes followed every movement, noting the twitch of a hand, the tension in the shoulders, the nervous glance toward the others. He smiled faintly, not unkindly, but with a quiet awareness of the control he held over the moment. Before the men could react further, he made a subtle movement. It was almost imperceptible, but it sent one of the intruders off balance. The other two flinched, realizing that the man in front of them was not ordinary. Within moments, the farmer had closed the distance between himself and the first intruder. A quick, precise motion, and the man stumbled to the ground, unhurt but incapacitated enough to remove him from the immediate confrontation. The remaining two men tried to advance, but the farmer was ready. He moved with unexpected speed, using leverage and positioning rather than brute force. One man was disarmed, his knife clattering on the ground. The other froze, indecision taking over as he saw how efficiently the farmer neutralized the threat. It was not anger or cruelty in his actions, only control, focus, and the skills honed over years of training. The men had expected an easy target, someone they could intimidate. Instead, they faced a calm force that moved like water, precise and unstoppable. Their confidence eroded, replaced by fear and confusion. They tried to retreat, but the farmer anticipated their movements, guiding them back with minimal effort, ensuring that no one was hurt, yet demonstrating his power clearly. By the time the first confrontation ended, the men were on the edge of the property, unsure and shaken. They glanced at one another, realizing that the man they had underestimated was more than he seemed. The farmer stood in the moonlight, large, calm, and alert, but not menacing. He was a protector, a guardian of his land, and a man whose past had prepared him for moments like this. The next morning the farm was quiet once more, but the memory of the night lingered. The farmer moved among his crops and animals with the same calm demeanor as always, though there was a new edge of awareness. He checked the fences, made small repairs, and observed the horizon. The intruders had been warned, and though they had fled for now, the tension remained. He could sense that they would not give up easily, but he was ready for whatever came next. Neighbors began to whisper about what had happened. Some came by to ask questions, others simply watched from a distance. No one had seen the confrontation directly, but the story spread. The quiet farmer, the gentle man, had faced down intruders and come out unscathed. It was almost unbelievable, yet the signs were there. The tracks, the minor damage left behind, and the clear absence of the men afterward told the tale. The farmer paid little attention to the rumors. He returned to his routine, caring for the animals and tending to the fields, but he remained vigilant. He knew the men would not give up easily. They had underestimated him once, but next time they might come with more planning, more preparation. He welcomed the challenge in a quiet way, trusting his instincts and skills to guide him. During the day, he reflected briefly on his past. Years ago, he had faced situations that required precision, calm, and discipline. He had been trained to stay focused under pressure, to read movements, to anticipate actions. Those lessons, once applied in dangerous missions far away, were now quietly protecting his home and his life. He thought about how different this world was, how simple and slow life could feel, yet how the lessons of the past still mattered in unexpected ways. The afternoon sun shone warmly over the farm as he prepared for the evening. He made sure the gates were secure, checked the subtle alarms and traps he had set, and moved through the house quietly. Every detail mattered. He had learned that small things could make the difference between danger and safety. His movements were deliberate but unhurried, reflecting a mind that was alert yet at peace. When night came again, the farm was bathed in shadows and moonlight. The men had not returned yet, but he felt their presence in the tension of the air, in the sense that the world beyond the fence had not forgotten him. He moved quietly, staying near the porch where he could observe the land. His senses were alive, every sound and movement noted. This was the first direct confrontation, but he knew it would not be the last. He welcomed it, prepared for it, and knew that the next encounter would test both patience and skill. He sat by the fire that evening, reflecting on what had occurred. His hands were steady, his mind calm. He thought about how the situation could have escalated if he had reacted with anger or fear. Instead, he had stayed in control, used his knowledge, and neutralized the threat without unnecessary harm. That was the power of experience, of discipline, of a life that had prepared him for moments like these. Outside, the night sounds continued, crickets, rustling leaves, the faint movement of animals. Everything seemed calm, almost normal. Yet the world had shifted slightly. The farmer understood that appearances were deceptive. He was still a gentleman, a quiet farmer, but now he had faced the first test and had emerged in control. The men would think twice before returning, and he would be ready if they did. By the time the fire had burned low, he moved to the porch once more, gazing at the horizon. The moon cast long shadows over the fields, illuminating the quiet beauty of the farm. He breathed deeply, feeling the calm of the land, the rhythm of the animals, the life he had chosen. But he remained alert, understanding that the peace was fragile, that the world beyond the fences could bring danger at any time. The first confrontation had revealed more than his skill. It had revealed a truth about perception. The farmer was more than he seemed, and anyone who underestimated him would quickly learn the cost of that mistake. He smiled faintly, not with pride but with quiet acknowledgement of the balance between simplicity and strength. He returned inside, locked the doors, and settled by the fire once again. The first major challenge had passed, but he knew it was only the beginning. Patience, vigilance, and calm would guide him through what was to come. He was ready, not just for the next night, but for the days and challenges that lay ahead. The farm remained a sanctuary, but it was also a stage for the lessons yet to unfold. He had faced the first test and had shown that even a quiet farmer could command respect, skill, and control. The night outside was still, but within he was fully awake, fully aware, and fully prepared. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of wet soil and fresh grass. The large black farmer moved quietly among his crops, his eyes scanning the horizon. He had faced the first intrusion and had emerged unscathed. But he knew the gang would not give up easily. There was a tension in the air, a sense that the quiet of the farm was temporary, fragile. He prepared himself, not with fear, but with calm determination and awareness. By mid-morning, he had completed the usual chores, feeding the animals, checking the water, inspecting the fences, and tending to the vegetables. Every movement was deliberate, every glance purposeful. He had noticed subtle signs over the past few days, tire tracks leading up to the edge of the land, broken branches that suggested trespassers, even small stones out of place. All of these indicated that the gang was planning a more serious return. He was ready. He moved through the barn, checking his traps and alarms. He had refined them, making sure each one would alert him without giving away his position. A simple noise here, a shift in the soil there. Nothing complicated, nothing dangerous, just enough to let him know the intruders were near. He had learned long ago that preparation was as important as action, and patience could be a powerful tool. The afternoon sun rose higher, and the farm seemed calm, almost serene. But he knew better. He had been trained to sense tension, to read the world through small details. Shadows moved differently, sounds carried differently. The air itself seemed to hum with anticipation. The gang was coming, and he would meet them not with panic, but with the precise control that had kept him alive in situations far more dangerous than this. Evening approached, and he prepared for the final confrontation. He moved through the property, checking every corner, every fence line, every approach that someone might use to gain entry. He adjusted traps, ensured that the animals were safe, and took mental notes of each potential hiding spot the gang might use. He was methodical, deliberate, patient. The land was his advantage, and he intended to use it fully. The first sign of their arrival came as the wind shifted, carrying the sound of tires crunching on the gravel road. He watched from the barn loft as several figures appeared at the edge of the property. This time they were more numerous, more confident, armed with tools meant to intimidate. They had learned from the first encounter, but they still underestimated him. He allowed them to move closer, observing, calculating their patterns, waiting for the right moment. He stepped out from the shadows, his presence immediately noticed. The men froze, the confidence in their movement faltering. They thought they knew what to expect, but they had not anticipated his calm, his awareness, or the quiet power in his size and stance. One of them made a sudden move, perhaps to charge, but the farmer was faster. In a smooth motion he intercepted, guiding the man away from the others, using leverage and balance rather than force. The intruder stumbled, caught off guard, and the farmer's controlled hand gently but firmly restrained him. The remaining men reacted, but the farmer had anticipated their actions. With movements honed from years of discipline, he disarmed one, sent another staggering backward, and positioned himself to control the field. It was not a fight fueled by anger or violence. It was a dance of strategy, awareness, and control. Every step he took, every shift in his body was measured, deliberate, and effective. The intruders realized quickly that brute force would not work. They attempted to retreat, but he controlled the exits, subtly guiding them toward positions where they could not gain advantage. The night was alive with the sound of shifting feet, the soft thuds of missteps, and the quiet authority of a man in command of his land. He moved like a shadow, silent yet present, allowing them to exhaust themselves against an invisible barrier of strategy. Neighbors who had been watching from a distance whispered in awe. They had never seen anything like it. The quiet farmer, the gentle man, was moving with precision and control that spoke of a life far removed from farming. His calm strength, his ability to anticipate and neutralize without unnecessary harm, left a lasting impression. They realized quietly that this man was no ordinary farmer. After what seemed like hours but was only minutes, the gang was finally forced to retreat. They fled, their confidence shattered, their plan undone. The farmer stood in the moonlight, calm, alert, and unhurried. His heart beat steadily, not with fear but with the quiet satisfaction of one who had protected his home without overstepping, without letting anger guide him. He moved through the farm slowly, checking for any signs of damage. A gate had been slightly bent, a small patch of dirt disturbed, but nothing significant. His crops were safe, his animals unharmed, and his home intact. The land was secure once more, and he allowed himself a deep breath, the tension of anticipation slowly leaving his body. The next day he went about his usual routine, but the air felt lighter. He fed the animals, tended the vegetables, and repaired the small gate that had been disturbed. Yet he remained aware. The world could change quickly, and he knew that vigilance was as important as strength. He moved with calm, deliberate purpose, balancing the peaceful life he loved with the awareness that danger could return at any time. Neighbors began to speak more openly about the events. Some approached him cautiously, expressing admiration for how he had handled the situation. Others simply watched, curiosity mixed with a newfound respect. He responded with quiet smiles, never boasting, never exaggerating. He had done what was necessary, and that was enough. In the evenings, he would sit by the fire, reflecting on the confrontation. He thought about the skills that had kept him alive in the past, the patience and discipline that had allowed him to face danger calmly. He understood that his past was now part of the protection of this farm, a quiet shield that ensured his life remained peaceful. He sipped his tea, the warmth a comfort against the cool night air, and considered the lessons the intrusion had taught: patience, observation, and the power of calm control. As the days passed, the farm returned to its quiet rhythm. The sun rose and set over the fields. The animals moved through their routines, and the crops thrived under careful tending. Yet the farmer remained vigilant. He knew the world beyond the fences could still bring trouble, and he was prepared to meet it with the same calm strength that had carried him through the confrontation. The gang had learned their lesson. This farmer was not to be underestimated. He was quiet, unassuming, and seemingly gentle, but beneath that surface lay a man of discipline, strategy, and skill. He had protected what was his without harm to others, demonstrating that strength could be measured not by aggression, but by control and intelligence. Night fell again, and he stood on the porch, gazing at the fields bathed in moonlight. The farm was peaceful, alive with the sounds of animals and the whisper of the wind through the trees. He breathed in deeply, feeling the calm of the land, the rhythm of life that he had chosen, and the satisfaction of knowing he had defended it. The confrontation was over, but the lessons remained: patience, preparation, and the quiet power of a man who knew himself and his capabilities. He returned inside, settled by the fire, and let the warmth of the room envelop him. His hands were steady, his mind calm, and his heart at ease. The farm was safe, the land secure, and the animals unharmed. The world outside had tested him, but he had met the challenge with calm precision and emerged victorious. He was a farmer, a protector, and a man whose quiet strength spoke louder than words ever could. The sun rose slowly over the farm, painting the fields in warm golden light. The large black farmer moved through his land with quiet ease, checking the crops and feeding the animals as he always did. The final confrontation with the gang had passed, leaving the farm safe and undisturbed. Yet the farmer knew that peace was something earned, not given, and that vigilance remained a part of daily life. He walked slowly, taking in the familiar sights: the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft cooing of doves, and the low hum of the wind across the fields. Every sound, every movement was comforting, a reminder of the life he had worked hard to protect. Word of the events spread through the nearby town. Neighbors spoke quietly about the farmer, their tone a mixture of surprise and respect. No one had witnessed the details, but the results were clear. The intruders had been repelled, and the farm had remained untouched. Some neighbors came by to offer congratulations, others simply to catch a glimpse of the man who had faced danger with calm strength. The farmer greeted each one with a simple nod or a quiet smile, never boasting, never exaggerating. For him, the satisfaction lay not in recognition, but in knowing that his home and the life he cherished were secure. As he moved through the barn, feeding the animals, he reflected on what had occurred. The encounters had tested him, but they had also reminded him of the skills and discipline he had learned long ago. Skills that once served in distant missions now served to protect his land and his life. He had always lived quietly, preferring peace and routine, yet he was capable of defending what mattered without unnecessary harm. The thought brought a small smile to his face, a quiet acknowledgement of balance between past and present. The farmer spent the afternoon tending to his crops. He inspected every row of vegetables, carefully checking for any signs of damage or disease. He watered the plants, adjusted the supports for the growing vines, and pruned leaves where necessary. The work was steady and familiar, grounding him in the calm rhythm of farm life. Even after the tension of recent days, the simplicity of these tasks reminded him why he had chosen this life. Here he could find peace yet remain ready, should the need arise. Neighbors started to visit more openly, curious to learn more about the man who had so quietly defended his home. Some asked about how he had handled the situation. Though he spoke little of specifics, he shared lessons about preparation, observation, and patience, emphasizing that calm thinking often prevented danger from escalating. The townspeople listened closely, impressed by the wisdom and humility in his words. They began to see that his strength was not only physical, but also mental and emotional, a combination that made him formidable in unexpected ways. Evenings returned to their peaceful routine. The farmer would sit on the porch, a cup of tea warming his hands, watching the sky turn shades of orange and purple as the sun dipped behind the hills. The animals moved quietly in their pens, the wind rustled through the trees, and the farm hummed with life. These moments of reflection were cherished, giving him space to appreciate the calm he had fought to preserve. He thought about the intruders, not with anger, but with clarity. Their presence had reminded him that appearances could deceive, and that even the gentlest of men could carry strength beneath a calm exterior. As the week passed, the farm remained undisturbed. The intruders did not return, and the community gradually understood that the farmer was not just a quiet man of the land, but also a protector capable of defending what mattered most. Parents spoke to their children about caution, neighbors nodded knowingly when passing the farm, and everyone seemed to hold a quiet respect for the man who had kept his home safe. The farmer moved among them with the same gentle demeanor as always, his calm presence a reassuring constant in the community. One afternoon he reflected on the life he had chosen. The farm was more than a place to grow crops or raise animals. It was a sanctuary, a space where he could live in harmony with nature, practice patience, and find fulfillment in the simple acts of daily life. The confrontations had been a test, but they also served as a reminder that his past, though long behind him, still equipped him to protect his present. He understood that strength was not always visible, but it was always there when needed. The farmer spent time repairing and improving the property. A broken fence was fixed, weak spots in the barn reinforced, and small improvements were made to the irrigation system. Each task was done with care, reflecting his commitment to the farm and the life it provided. He worked steadily, moving from one project to the next, always aware but never hurried. The farm thrived under his attention, growing greener and stronger with each passing day. As evening fell, he stood at the edge of the fields, looking out over the land he had defended. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and the sky was painted with deep blues and purples. He could see the silhouettes of the animals moving quietly through the fields, hear the rustle of leaves in the wind, and feel the warmth of the earth beneath his feet. There was a deep satisfaction in this view, a sense that he had protected not only his property, but the life he valued so deeply. Neighbors began to understand more about him. Stories of his past, though never spoken directly by him, started to circulate quietly. People realized that his calm, deliberate actions during the confrontations reflected training and experience far beyond what they had imagined. Yet he remained the same man they had always known, gentle, kind, and deeply connected to his farm. Respect for him grew, but he never let it change who he was. He remained humble, focused on the simple rhythms of life that brought him joy. One night after the farm had grown quiet and the animals settled into their pens, he sat by the fire, reflecting on the days past. He thought about how quickly appearances could deceive, how people often underestimated the quiet and the gentle, and how strength could manifest in calm and deliberate ways. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that he had defended his home without unnecessary violence and that his land, his animals, and his life remained secure. The farmer continued his routine, each day a blend of work and quiet reflection. He tended the crops, cared for the animals, and walked the fields, always aware but never anxious. He knew that life could change unexpectedly, that challenges could arise, but he also knew that calm, preparation, and awareness were powerful tools. The events of the past days had reinforced this truth, and he carried it with him as a guiding principle. As weeks passed, the farm flourished. The crops grew tall and strong, the animals thrived, and the land seemed to hum with life. The farmer moved among it all with a steady rhythm, enjoying the fruits of his labor and the calm he had fought to preserve. He watched the horizon each evening, appreciating the changing light, the gentle wind, and the quiet presence of life that surrounded him. He knew that he would always remain vigilant. The challenges could arise, but he also knew that he was prepared. The farm was his sanctuary, and he would protect it with patience, intelligence, and calm strength. He had faced danger and emerged unshaken, proving that appearances could deceive and that true strength often lay hidden beneath quiet exteriors. In the end, the farmer returned fully to the life he loved. His days were filled with work and reflection, his evenings with calm observation of the land and animals he cherished. He was respected by the community, not for bravado or violence, but for the quiet way he protected what mattered. The intruders had been defeated, the farm secured, and life moved forward with gentle rhythm and peaceful certainty. As he sat on the porch one last time that evening, the sun setting in brilliant hues, he felt a deep satisfaction. The farm was safe, the animals unharmed, and the land thriving. He had proven that quiet strength, patience, and awareness could overcome danger without unnecessary harm. Life continued, simple and fulfilling, and he knew that while appearances could deceive, true strength always revealed itself when needed. He leaned back, breathing in the calm air, watching the stars emerge in the night sky, and felt the quiet joy of a life well lived and fiercely protected.